Indianapolis Center, roger. JetBlue 84, turn left heading 100 vectors for the runway 23 approach. Contact Orlando Tower on 118.45 when established on final.
3-1, Sierra Mike understood. Continue present heading until established on the localizer for runway 26 left approach.
Rouge 596 Montreal Tower, wind 080 at 7 runway 6 right, cleared for takeoff. Fly runway heading until reaching 1000, then on course. JetBlue 2984, Orlando Tower, winds calm. Runway 18 right, cleared to land. Skyhawk 7774, Juliet Langley Regional Tower, winds 233 at 9er runway 7, cleared for takeoff departure to Trinity.
Delta 2259er, pushback and engine start approved. Report when ready for taxi. Skyhawk 3 Alpha Zulu cleared to land runway 35, winds 273 at 16. 570 Salt Lake Center, I'm not seeing your transponder. Confirm squawking 1742 mode C. Ident one more time for me. 570, welcome to Glacier. Contact ground on 121.6.
Piper 555, November Sierra, New York approach. Good evening, Farmingdale altimeter 29er74.
Citation 972 Mike Kilo Rio ground taxi to holding point runway 20 left via Bravo, hold short of runway. Information Kilo is current. Report when ready for departure. Delta 2259er, contact tower on 118.9er when ready for departure.
Golf Mike Mike. After altitude 3000, turn left heading 270 degrees.
2EJ 9er5. Charlie climb and maintain flight level 150, squawk 5224. Delta 2259er, contact Varna approach on 124.6. Allegiant Air 396 cleared to Cincinnati via the ended one departure, then as filed. Maintain 4000, expect flight level 36010 minutes after departure. Departure on 125.3, squawk 4523. Expect runway 18 for departure.
Papa Tango Delta Romeo, Whisky Torre de Jacarepaguá, ventos calmos, pista 3 liberado para decolar.
American 35, taxi to runway 10 right via Tango November Tango, Quebec Juliet. Contact tower on 119.3 when ready for departure.
JetBlue 84, copy, welcome to Orlando. Have a good evening.
American 1221, PG Indianapolis, sender, roger. JetBlue 84, turn left heading 100 vectors for the runway 23 approach. Contact Orlando Tower on 118.45 when established on final.
3-1, Sierra Mike understood. Continue present heading until established on the localizer for runway 26 left approach.
Rouge 596 Montreal Tower, wind 080 at 7 runway 6 right, cleared for takeoff. Fly runway heading until reaching 1000, then on course. JetBlue 2984, Orlando Tower, winds calm. Runway 18 right, cleared to land.
Hey, we did it. 1 second here while I get everything situated. I'm very excited about this. I've been, as most of you know, I took, last week I took a week off with the family. We went on a wonderful vacation that we've had planned for a long time, and it's good to be back. It's good to be back here doing what we do. I forget sometimes, how much fun this is to get to work on, the latest and greatest cool stuff all day, every day. So thank you to everybody for all of your support while I was gone. Thank you for your patience. Oh, is the volume not good? Are you guys able to hear me okay? I just was told the mic volume's not right, so let me know for sure, and I'll adjust it, although I'm peeking off the scale here, so I'll assume that it's okay unless you guys tell me differently. Yeah, I appreciate all of the support and patience while I disappeared for a week. I felt bad that we kind of left with a couple really ugly bugs when I took off, and I know it negatively affected a number of flights. We had some ATIS issues and things like that, but is it low? I can turn it up. It's all right. That's no problem. Here, let's, one sec. Let me crank it up here. All right. Well, I turned it up a little bit. Hopefully that's not too bad. I appreciate the patience. I appreciate everything that you guys allowing me to disappear like that, and I appreciate that you kind of lived with the couple little issues that we had in place while I was gone. We've made a ton of progress since I got back, and we got a number of interesting things to talk about today. So let's dive right in here. You follow the usual format here. First of all, what's new? The first one is I'm back from vacation. Yay. The second one is I was going through the logs here, and in the last 21 days, we've pushed and fixed 142 different bugs. And I say 21 days because it's been 21 days since we last did a vectors to final. By the way, the 142 bugs of the 142. 117 of those were directly related to the air traffic control side of it, and not the the tour guide, intercom, that kind of stuff. So continue to know that the vast majority of the time of both me and the rest of the development team is very, very focused on the ATC side. It's very important to us that we get that right. It will never be perfect. We're never going to get to a point where everybody does a flight and says, hey, 10 out of 10, it was perfect every single time. There's a lot of reasons for that, but it'll never happen. So the goal then is to get it as close as we possibly can, and we'll talk more about that here in just a second. One thing I wanted to mention, we got a bunch of new things I'm going to throw out here. We're just going to toss it out early on. The first one is a new sort of release discipline. That discipline means, in the past, we've been very focused on, developing and pushing changes as rapidly as possible. So we would go through days where I would push in anywhere from 3 to 30 either bug fixes or enhancements in a single 24-hour period. And that's been kind of business as usual at SayIntentions since day one. Now, there's pros and cons to that approach. The pros are we're very quick to fix, bugs and issues and things like that. The cons are, there's a very high risk of instability since we're sort of skipping I don't want to say we're skipping the QA portion, but we're massively accelerating the QA portion to do this sort of, continuous integration, continuous delivery. In the development world, they call that CI/CD. It's time to lock that down just a little bit. I don't want to go too much here. I want to be really careful with making sure that we don't overcorrect on this. But, the last thing that we want to do is do this thing where, you fix one problem and you create two problems, right? That's not real typical of what we've been doing, but software development by nature is you fix two problems and create one problem, right? And the good news about creating, fixing two problems and creating one problem, you're fixing two problems and you're creating one new problem, right? Whereas people go, gosh, I don't know why this doesn't work. It used to work. How come it doesn't anymore? And that's what happens is you fix something and you break something. You fix two things and you break one thing. And that is, again, very typical of the way software development works. The good news about that formula is that the math works, right? What I mean by that is as long as you're 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, you're continuing to move forward. But that 1 step backward can be very frustrating to people, and sometimes it feels worse or more frustrating than it probably should. So we're thanks. Yeah, CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, exactly. We're very committed to trying to stabilize the experience as best as possible. And in order to do that, we need to introduce some new release policies. So I've spent a lot of time the last week or so really making our experimental server more robust. It now sits behind our load balancer. It now sits in a situation where, it's got full fault tolerance. If the experimental server fails for some reason, there's other experimental servers that step in and pick up the load, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really, the experimental server is now deployed in a way that's, hardened for production. We're now going to use the experimental server as the target for those daily pushes, for the multiple pushes. In other words, this situation where I was pushing anywhere from 3 to 30 fixes or changes a day into our primary production server is now changing. And instead, I'm going to be pushing those 3 to 30 fixes per day into our experimental server. If you're willing to help us test things and you're willing to, sort of live with that instability in exchange for getting, some cool new stuff on a regular basis, I would encourage you to fly with the experimental server. And you do that by going to inside the app. You go to settings, and then there's a tab. This is experimental. And then you can change the server from primary to experimental. The second thing that I would ask you to do if you're going to fly on the experimental server is to, inside of our Discord, make sure that you're participating in the channels that we have set up for that experimental server. Make sure you're reading the experimental changelog, for example. That's really important so that you know what you're looking for, right? You know what issues have been fixed or what new things are in there, and so that you know what you can specifically try to test while you're flying around. For example, right now, the big thing that we're trying to test out on the experimental server is I've got altitude enforcement turned on. We've talked a long time about how enforcement is really just a matter of turning this stuff on. We can do it. There's no reason we can't. But until the AI is, near 100% perfect at in a particular category, enforcement can become a very frustrating thing, right? If you say, gosh, it got it wrong, so I'm just going to kind of do it my way so that I, don't ruin my whole flight. That's something that we want to make sure that you retain. So we do have a number of areas where enforcement is turned on. For example, busting a Bravo airspace, you'll get yelled at. Taking off without a clearance, you're going to get yelled at. And we got a whole bunch of those things that are already turned on and enforced. And my goal is to get to a point where literally everything has enforcement turned on. But we have to balance that with making sure that everybody has a positive experience in the face of a situation where the AI sometimes gets things wrong. So altitude enforcement is the big thing that we're currently testing on the experimental server. But we'll talk more about some of the other things that I plan on testing there here in the next couple days. Once we've certified that the experimental server seems stable, meaning we didn't make anything worse, we'll push those into production, into the primary server. And you can expect that we'll do, pushes from experimental into primary probably every 3 days, maybe as much as every 2 days, depending on the level of stability that we're finding there. So, and by the way, we can do that much faster the more people that use the experimental server. So if you're willing to help us out and you're willing to live with instability and all that stuff, please use that server. But I reserve the right to not feel bad if you're using the experimental server and we ruin your flight for whatever reason. So thank you for that. That'll be the experimental server and our new release policies there. Second, we released 2617 yesterday. This is a really nice new version. It has it's mostly stability fixes and bug fixes, but there is one new thing, which is that the effects volume can now be controlled independently of the COM1, COM2, and the intercom volumes. So that should be a nice little add-on. But mostly this release was focused around stability. Derek, you asked why do we go 2612, then 2615, then 2610, then 2615. Well, we kind of got caught in a situation where when I went on vacation, we were scrambling to get things stabilized and found that 2610 was really the more stable version. So I tried everything I could to get people to roll back to that until I could get home, so that we could address the issues. So you kind of got caught in, this funny situation where I was just in scramble mode to get you guys something that was stable, and so we mucked up the versions a little bit, but that's not typically how we like to do things. So all good there. So 2617 is out now. Give it a try. I'd love your feedback on it. And again, the apps typically don't have any ATC logic in there, so they're more about the hardware interface, things like volume control and mic and all that stuff. But hopefully we've also got the issues with the stuck microphone fixed. So looking forward to that. Crowd voice. This is something that we announced. It was probably about a month ago. We announced this idea that you guys can now contribute your voices to become air traffic controllers. I'm here to tell you it's been an enormous success. Because of crowd voice and because of your willingness to sort of quote unquote donate your voice as the seed for AI training voice models. We've added hundreds and hundreds of new voices, and we haven't even scratched the surface because we've got hundreds and hundreds more on deck that we've yet to review that are waiting. So nice job. Way more than I ever anticipated we would get. It's made a gigantic difference. We have a lot of voices in the system now, way more than I ever thought we would get to, and it really has been a nice upgrade, I think, for everybody. So thank you for that. One cool thing I added the other day, I wanted to mention it here. We now have the ability to change the speech rate of the ATC controllers in a much more fine-tuned way. And so we'll be going through and getting those really slow voices either out of there or fixing them. So stay tuned on that one. But ATC does not speak slowly, and we want to make sure that we're modeling that. So we've done a couple of interesting things with the speech rate that are worth calling out. The first one is if you have student pilot mode turned on, then by default, all of the controllers across the board are going to speak about 10% slower than they do normally. So that's a huge benefit for people who are, learning how ATC comms work or, just need everything to be a little bit slower. Nothing wrong with that. So student pilot mode being on will give you that benefit instantly. The second thing that we added, which is very cool, and I was going to pull in a demo of it, but I ran out of time, but you can now say to air traffic control, they'll give you a message, and you go, that was way too fast. So you can now say again a little slower for me, and it'll slow down for you. It's way cool. If you go try it. It's really cool. You can say, say it again even slower. And it'll slow it down even more. It's really, really neat. So mimicking, that real world interaction with an air traffic controller who may be speaking too fast. And there's no shame in saying, hey, can you slow down a little bit? This is particularly useful for things like craft clearances. And it really brings us to a point where taking the app and dropping it into the background where you can't see the conversation dialogue is now very realistic, because if ATC says something to you, not only can you say again to hear it again, but you can adjust the tempo that it comes out just like you can in real life, identical to the way it works in real life. So very cool. I'm very proud of this, but more importantly, it's going to give us much more fine-tuned control over the speech rate of some of these slower voices that we have in the system. So super cool stuff. The next thing I want to mention is the launch of SayIntentions Pro. This is for commercial customers, and I'm actually really excited about this because to date we haven't had good answers for our commercial interest. Right? One of the things we learned at FS Expo is there's a ton of, whether they're flight schools or whether they're companies that are creating, simulators that are for recreational use, where you pay by the hour. There's a number of these now where you go in and you pay, anywhere from $60 to $150 an hour, and you can sit down in a commercial simulator and fly around in these $100,000, $150,000 simulators. They're really neat. So we haven't had good answers for those kinds of people who want to use our stuff, largely because our pricing model is just not designed for it. What I mean by that is, we offer everything we have in an unlimited, all-you-can-eat fashion. And in a commercial situation where that simulator is in use, 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day, that pricing model just plain would never work. So for a variety, and there's a variety of other reasons why we're separating the product offering for our commercial customers. But for the first time ever, we finally have a commercial offering. We finally have commercial pricing. We finally have a way to support our commercial customers. So if you're looking for something like this, the website is pro.sayintentions.ai, and Justice is leading the efforts here. You'll know him on Discord as McCracken Air. So huge thanks to him for organizing all of this, getting this set up, and getting us in a position where we can now handle all of the interest we're getting on the commercial side. The good news is, for the rest of you who are not commercial customers, that this is going to be awesome for you guys. And the reason is because the commercial customers tend to be a little bit more demanding about the quality that they want, a little bit more demanding about making sure that things are just right, et cetera, et cetera. So all this does is put pressure on us to get things better and better and better, right? And everybody wins when we do that. So I'm very excited about this, and again, a huge thanks to Justice, Mr. McCracken Air, for all of the efforts that he's put in to get that program launched. If you have questions, you can reach out to me or him, or again, visit the website there, pro.sayintentions.ai. And we got two more things that I'm going to announce when we're done here. Your usual Thursday spoilage, where I get to drop some exciting news on you. Feedback scores, how are we doing? I promised that I would try to cover this once a month, so we'll try to make this like the first, the first one of the month that we do. I'll cover the feedback scores. How are we doing over the last 7 days? Oh, someone's getting an error when they try to go to the pilot portal. Oh my gosh, that is totally my fault, and the reason is because it's broken. Hang on. This is easy. This is my fault. I pushed in a change right before I started this thing, and then I got distracted and didn't type the very last command that I needed to type. So I hope you'll forgive me for my own stupidity on that one. We're back up on the pilot portal. Sorry about that. By the way, it is worth mentioning, speaking of errors on the pilot portal, hopefully these become much more rare now because we made a number of changes there. But the VR application, Comlink, the deployment of that has been re-architected, and hopefully the 500 errors that happen occasionally with the Comlink and the VR application are now a thing of the past because of the re-architecture. If you see Ryan around, give him a thank you for that. He kind of led that effort, and it's going to be really nice now. I'm very excited about that. And I really do think that, other than the fact that I forgot to type that one command when we were done, that most of the issues related to the 500 errors on the pilot portal are also pretty well resolved now. So, yay for that. All right. I think hang on, I got to find my my window here so I can see what you guys are saying. I lost it. Uno momento here. There we go. Now we got it back. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's go back here. Sorry, I lost my place and got discombobulated here on our scores. So how are we doing here? The first one is our IFR flights. We ask people to rank those when they do their survey on a scale of 1 to 10 at the end, sort of the overall score. And right now in the last 7 days, the average score is an 8.11 out of 10. That's actually up 6%. So I am super duper duper excited about that. Yay. But there's some bad news here. The VFR flights are down 0.5%, 7.85 out of 10. And about an hour ago, I think we figured out why. The landing clearances and the pattern position reports were not right. And we got that bug fixed and found really quick So yeah, special thanks to Mr. Adam from the 80s on Discord for calling out on that one and helping me quickly track that down. So I also think that these scores here, because our overall score was down 1.1%. I think last time we looked at this, we were at about a 4.49. I'm sorry, a 4.59, and now we're at a 4.55. So barely. But you know, I still pay attention to this. Now, some of this I do think is related to the fact that I was out, and we definitely had some bugs in the system while I was out. So some of that's bleeding into our scores here. And again, our goal here is to just keep getting better. And the way we know we're getting better is by you know, tracking the numbers, tracking the data. So thank you for those who fill out the flight forms at the end of the flights. I pay very close attention to those. Shoot your shot. For those who don't know, this is a contest where you get to post a screenshot of a beautiful picture of you flying around with the SayIntentions livery. We have tons of liveries available on our website. This, if you win, as Kevin M. Davis 2010 did for the month of July, you win 2 free weeks of SayIntentions. I love these because when we get these shots, I love using them on our website. I like using them, you know, in social media posts, et cetera, et cetera. They're beautiful. They're wonderful. And thank you. And I also love all the liveries that are out there with our stuff on it. They look so cool. So thank you for that. And congratulations to Kevin on winning this month's. If you want to submit a shot and you're flying around with a SayIntentions livery, take your screenshot, jump into our Discord. There's a channel just for Shoot Your Shot, and just paste it in there. That's all you have to do, and you're automatically entered. All right, what are we working on now? This is always, I get this question all the time. First one is, and you know, this stuff is not widely changed because there's giant work going on here, but early traffic injection proof of concepts. In fact, we made a quantum leap forward with some of this morning. We still have a ton of work to do. It's going to be a long time before we're ready to show you anything related to, you know, traffic injection and sequencing, but we continue to make progress here, and I'm very, very excited about this. Mr. Joe in the Discord, sorry to take a turn here, asks, is there a place to show what's being added on the experimental branch? Yes, Joe. It's on our Discord. If you go into the, there's a channel called Experimental Changelog, and I post everything in there. When can we expect a livery for the 777? That would be cool. If any of our livery creators want to do one for the 777, let me know, and I'll figure out how to get you compensated for that. I would love a livery for the 777. That would be very cool. So we got a ton of people who like to make these for us, and if you're one of those and you want to do one for the 777, let me know. We'll get it out there. So early traffic injection proof of concept is getting a ton of our time and attention right now. Dynamic departures continues to get a ton of our attention. Bug fixes. You know, we'll never get all the bugs out of it, but it's funny how many little tiny edge cases there are all over the place with this thing. And, you know, we want to get those smoothed out and clean and make it so everybody has perfect flights all the time, right? We're also now starting to work on things like how-to videos and things like that. In fact, Mr. Speedy Retreat is his handle on Discord. Right after we're done here, he's going to be doing a sort of a group flight demo thing, I believe streamed on Discord, but maybe it's YouTube. One of our admins knows better than me. Will you paste in the YouTube channel what the details of that are, if you don't mind? It'll be right after I'm done here that we do that. So if you're looking for something else to go watch mindlessly, take a look at that one. And if you're new to SayIntentions, definitely take a look at that one. Speedy does a really good job on those. And then I'm actually excited to tell you that we do have some really cool stuff on deck for the next couple weeks. 2 very, very interesting things that are not yet done. It's taking all my willpower not to say what they are, but stay tuned, because I think we'll have something next week that is going to get people pretty excited, and then something the week after that I think is going to get people even more excited. So yeah, this is awesome, and this is in addition to the 2 things I'm going to tell you about today. Oh, it's on YouTube. Okay, great. Yeah, so right here, right on our YouTube channel. Yay! Thanks, man. The one thing that I'm very focused on right now, if we're going to talk about specific bugs, is the odd arrival scenarios, direct twos that don't make sense, sort of the impossible turns that people get when they're told to turn towards the final approach fix, etc. Those are probably like single lines of code that have, just slightly faulty logic, and we just need to find them by replicating them in a way where we can take a close look at them. So stay tuned on those. I think we're going to get those out of there. I know you guys have lived with that for a long time while we've worked on higher priority things, and the good news is this is now sort of bubbled to the top, and it's time to get that stuff out of there. Yeah. Swedish super solid ILS flights last 2 weeks, or IFR flights. Yes, absolutely. We are getting better and better and better and better. And the day will come very soon when the only time people have issues will either be, issues that aren't really issues. We get this a lot, people who don't actually understand how it's supposed to work in real life. They compare us to things like VATSIM. VATSIM does not model real-life ATC in a lot of different areas, for example. And we do it, the right way. That's not a knock on VATSIM, by the way. They do it the way they do for very good reasons, and that's okay. But, there's some issues where people jump in and say, gosh, that's not how it works because that's not how it's done over here, or things like that. So we're going to get to a point where, most of the issues that people report will probably fall into that category with, just edge cases and stuff that will continue to have bugs. But we're getting better and better. And if you aren't noticing that, you're not flying with us very often. So really good news here, really exciting stuff. As it relates to just sort of the core product. And then I'm going to be the first one to admit it. Uncle Harley needs a revamp. If you've flown with Uncle Harley, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it is, it needs work. And just putting it up here so that you guys know that I know and that it's on the radar and it needs some work. But I'm very focused on the core ATC stuff. I really think our cabin crew stuff is an amazing feature. I think our tour guide stuff is an amazing feature. Uncle Harley needs some work. So just throwing that out there. What's coming later? This one doesn't change very much. Traffic that matches the chatter, terrain awareness, 2024 scenarios, all of the traffic injection and living world stuff that I've talked about extensively in prior Vectors to Final, so I'm not going to rehash it here. But for those of you who follow along, I'm very curious. Let's see how you guys do. And I'm going to pause for a little bit because this will be fun. There's one missing from this list that has been on all of the previous Vectors to Final. And I'm curious, does anybody know what it is? There were, let's see, we got 6 bullet points in here, but for the past, ever since we started this thing, there have been 7 bullet points on here. Does anybody know what is the bullet point that is no longer on this list? I'll be very curious. If you guys know, you're more observant than I am, because I'm not sure I could have got this right. Adam, you win, sir. Good job. NOTAM awareness. That is correct. So maybe that's something that we're going to talk about here in just a second. But I have 2 things that I want to show you. The first one, before I show you these 2 things, I want to mention that our goal with SayIntentions is to make sure that your ATC experience mirrors real-world conditions in every way possible, right? And that means that we have to interact with real-world data in ways that most flight sim plugins are not doing. And I'll give you an example of that. The most obvious one is weather, right? If you want your ATC experience to mirror the real-world situation, then you need to be using real-world weather. Why? Because your MEDAR and your ATIS information, all that other stuff, you want that to match what's going on in the real world at that particular time. Taxiways and taxi instructions, where we now use real-world charts and real-world data to generate our taxi instructions, not the in-sim data. That's another example where we really want that experience to match the real world. The reason for all of this is because we want you to be able to use your real world tools. You should be able to use ForeFlight. You should be able to use Navigraph. You should be able to use whatever your real world tool is, your electronic flight bag, and it should match your ATC experience, right? Regardless of what's inside your simulator. And the reason for that is because we feel like that's the source of truth, that's the only source of truth that we can all agree on, which is real world, right? We can all hope to head that direction. So you probably, hopefully, have seen this in our design philosophy with so many other things, right? And again, I use weather and taxiways and all of this stuff as examples of that philosophy. Well, these two new features that I'm about to show you both fit into that same category. So the first one is real world PIREPs. And you go, well, wait a minute. You guys have had PIREPs forever. What's the deal? Oh, actually, before we talk about PIREPs, let me answer this question from RCHI Richie. What about local airport procedures? Not aware of local airport procedures at big airports, JFK, EGL, EM, EDF. We actually can do, we can curate local airport procedures on the back end. We have tools that our moderator team can use where they can go in and sort of custom build out the procedures for these airports. It's not something we've put a ton of time and effort into, but we have the capability. Airports like Phoenix, Seattle, Salt Lake City, Van Nuys, John Wayne, all have been sort of custom curated so that the procedures there match the real world. And you go, well, how come you can't do it with all of them then? And the answer is because the procedures for these airports are actually not published anywhere, especially for VFR flights. And Truckee is a great example where, when you take off from Truckee Airport in real life, Tower, if you take off from runway 20, Tower will say, proceed direct the truck scales. Proceed direct the quarry, then truck scales, then on course. They say that to every pilot, right? And you go, okay, that's cool. So why can't you do that with every airport? And the answer is because that stuff's not published anywhere. There's no chart. There's no NOTAM. There's no, it's not in the AirAC data. It's nowhere, right? Oftentimes it's written down on a sticky note in the tower of that airport. Some airports publish it on their website in like a PDF or like a local pilot's guide and stuff like that. So it's impossible to get that stuff in any automated way. So what we did is we built a set of tools where, just like the taxi tuner, where the data just plain doesn't exist, where we can go in and add those custom curation steps, and make the airport feel, from an air traffic controls perspective, just like it would if you were there in real life. So we do have that capability. It's very cool. All right, real world PIREPs. Let's talk about this. You go, well, you guys have had PIREPs for a long time. Yeah, you've been able to go on and report report a PIREP to air traffic control while you're cruising along, and they'll note it. And the odds of somebody flying behind you who's going to get that PIREP are pretty slim. But we now are pulling these from the real world. So we're actually no, Richie, when you say they're all published online, airports must do it per law, known as the Airport AIP, that is not true for the smaller VFR airports in Europe. And trust me on this one, I know, because I've tried to find the data. It's not there. The medium and larger airports definitely do it, but no. The other thing to keep in mind is that the publishing of these procedures is not in any specific format. Meaning they're just sentences, right? And to get a computer to interpret those sentences into a set of instructions that makes sense is extremely difficult. And this is where AI comes into play. So even if we can find the airport operating document, and you're right, medium airports, et cetera, in Europe do publish this stuff. Even if we can find it, by the way, there's no standard place where they publish these. So, saying, gosh, they do publish it is one thing, but finding out where they published it is another thing, is not realistic. So anyway, long story short, Richie, to answer your question, yes, we can do it. Have we done it? No, we have to do each of these by hand. So, help us out. If there's an airport that you want done a specific way and there's a specific set of procedures you'd love to see implemented, let's do it. No problem. All right, I'm going to set that aside now because I want to focus on what we're doing here. So PIREPs now are coming from the real world. What that means is that we're actively scanning the PIREP database while your flight is en route and looking for any reports from real-world pilots that might be relevant to your flight. And ATC will reach out to you and actually give you your PIREP. Now, I'm going to play something, and I want you to tell me if this actually works or not, so that you can hear an example of what this sounds like. 1 second. All right, I hope this works.
Diamond 6788 Bravo, heads up that we had a pilot report moderate chop at your altitude about 25 minutes ago. Let me know if you'd like a new altitude.
All right. How friggin' cool is that? Right? That is so cool. This is live now. I just pushed it live right before we started Vectors to Final. I'm going to let you hear that one more time because this is so cool. This is one that I got while I was testing.
Diamond 6788 Bravo, heads up that we had a pilot report moderate chop at your altitude about 25 minutes ago. Let me know if you'd like a new altitude.
So dang cool, right? So these are pulled from the real world database. That means if you're running real world weather, you're going to get these PIREPs while you're in midair. Nothing to configure. You don't need to do anything. ATC is going to proactively reach out to you to let you know of any situations that might affect you or that are relevant to your flight. Guys, this is crazy. Nobody is doing anything like this. So, yay! All right. Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. Okay, hang on. I'm told the audio might be off here. Let me see if I can pull it down a little bit. All right. That's PIREPs. Go use it right now. It's on the primary server. It's available to everybody. And yes, you're gonna get these alerts proactively. I was flying with it, and I was like, okay, this is cool. We should have done this a long time ago. So we pulled that off the long-term list. It's done. It's live. Yay! All right, here's the next one.
Diamond 6788
that's
Bravo.
the audio. Here's the next one. Boy, I've been looking for this one for a long time. NOTAM aware air traffic control. Yahoo! What this means now is that air traffic control is aware of the NOTAMs that might affect air traffic control operations for that particular airport or area. Specifically, we now will handle things like runway closures. We can also close down approaches. So just as an example, that little thing on the right there. In fact, let me move my picture out of the way. Can't move my picture as easy as I thought. Anyway, it says instrument landing system is out of service on the bottom there. And this actually came up while I was testing last night. You can see it was a very short window. Only 11, 10, 9, 8, like 8 hours, 7 hours, where they had the ILS service offline. And there was a NOTAM issued as a result of that. And it popped up during my testing. I was like, wow, I thought I had a bug because it was there once. It wasn't there 1 second, and then suddenly it was active. And so what this does, it actually shut down the ILS localizer. Now, we're not shutting it down in your simulator because just because the ILS is out of service doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It means that you're not allowed to fly the ILS. So air traffic control will now deny you the use of an approach procedure, for example, that's out of service. If you filed it in SimBrief, for example, and you're on arrival, air traffic control is going to give you something else. If you request it, air traffic control is going to deny that. That includes runways. Check this out. This is me asking Kennedy Tower for a particular runway yesterday while I was doing my testing. Here you go. This is so cool.
Kennedy Tower, good morning. Can I get runway 16 left, please? Skyhawk 3 Alpha Zulu, runway 16 left is closed as published in the NOTAM. Runway 13 is available.
So cool. So we're closing runways. We're shutting down approach procedures. We're giving pilots advisories, things where, it might make sense to do so. And you can ask ATC about NOTAMs that are ATC related. We don't load in all the NOTAMs for obvious reasons. If you've ever pulled up a NOTAM list for an airport, you know that sometimes there's dozens or hundreds of them. ATC can only answer questions about ones that are relevant to ATC operations. So But what this does is it adds that sort of next level of realism to your workload as a pilot, where you're now expected to understand these. You're now expected to know what's in them. And if you request things that, if there's a runway closed in real life, that runway is now closed inside of SayIntentions. So I am very, 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 very excited about this. Give it a try. You're going to love it. It's awesome. Once again, nothing you need to do, nothing you need to download, nothing you need to update. It's available as of now, and it's available on the primary server, and it's available to everybody. I love this. All right. Stay tuned. Next week, we've got an announcement that I think is, Derek, yes, NOTAM awareness and PIREPs are available even if you're in student pilot mode. That's correct. And probably even more important in student pilot mode, because one thing that student pilots often forget to do is review those NOTAMs on a regular basis. Yeah, flight service stations, that's a good question, Jeff. I need to look into that. We might be able to get the flight service stations to give you even more detail about the NOTAMs, but let me get back to you to that. That's what I've got for you. Takeoff instructions. Yeah. So GeoFilter, the takeoff instructions are high priority. That's actually part of the dynamic departure stuff that I showed a second ago at the very top of my what we're working on now list is those takeoff instructions. So very much on the list. Richie, initial climbs are tricky because they're not published in any common data format that we have access to. Navigraph, for example, does not publish the initial climb information inside of their data set that we get, et cetera, et cetera. So we basically have to guess. And that's one of the things that we're not going to be able to solve in likely the near future. Our guesses are decent, but they're not 100% accurate in many cases. It is what it is for now. There's just it's just a limitation of the data that's available to us. We may at some point shift that into a crowdsource mode, but it's an enormous effort for a very, very minor detail, right? That's what I've got for you for this week. I'll look forward to seeing you guys next Thursday. Next Thursday's announcement is bigger than these, and I think you're going to be pretty excited about it. Thank you, everybody. And if you have more questions that I did not answer here, please feel free to jump into our Discord. I'm happy to answer those questions over there. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we'll see you again next Thursday.